Hey everybody, it's Joel Janikowski here, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Darin Seamands, Superintendent and Principal of Hettinger Public School. We are coming to you here today for the review of the February school board meeting that just happened last night, and we're going to kind of just go through all the meeting minutes and just kind of share with you everything that's been going on and what's up, and kind of keep you involved. So Darin, thank you again for sitting down with us and
thank you, Joel.
Keeping us updated and all that stuff. So let's take a look at first thing here. So we had a consideration of bills, which is the February school board bills and the January manual checks. I'm assuming that's just business as usual,
Yep.
as we talked about last time. So aside of that, we have the financial reports and January activities reports. I'm assuming, again, same as last time as what we've done before. It's just keeping things up to date.
Correct.
And if you want to pause, we could turn on the lights, because I too am struggling to see.
Well, my problem is I'm at the age to where I need my glasses to see, but I got to take them off to read. So
that's okay. And
it's not necessarily your dark lighting in there.
I would actually request that you turn on the light, because I myself am struggling.
You want it on? Okay.
I myself, as even a youngin', still need a little bit of help sometimes.
Ooh, let there be light.
Let there be light. Yeah. Okay, so we went through the financial reports. There's really, it's the same as business as usual. But
yeah, I mean, nothing, so what we'll do with this in the future is if something comes out of there that's like, whoa, then it'll be worth talking. This is the time. I mean, there was a whoa moment last night on some of that stuff.
Okay.
To where this is the time of the year to where kids that we have from different school districts but come to Hettinger, and then kids that are from Hettinger that go to other school districts, this is the time of the year where schools bill the other schools for like services and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So let's say my kid's going to Lemon, right? But my kids receive special services. That's going to be a cost above and beyond what is normally assessed. So there were some of those bills that were being asked from some of our neighboring school districts.
Okay.
And then there were some of those asks that we put out to our neighboring districts too.
Gotcha.
So there was that more like, oh, hey, what's this bill from?
Gotcha.
And again, a lot of that it was because we're such a young administration, a young school board. So
gotcha.
But
so
otherwise,
it's just ironing those out, essentially. So if that kind of wraps up the financial reports, we're already down to miscellaneous business. So the first one was the superintendent and secondary principal report.
Yeah, this is going to be a true check on my memory, because I didn't bring those reports. I just grabbed the agenda sheet here. Mm-hmm. So I went through my report. Right now we're sitting with the pool, I guess. We had that report, and that'll come up in the committee later, so I'll just kind of hammer it out now. So I talked about the pool. We did have a meeting the other day with the contractors that are involved, the architecture firm, so on and so forth. Things are progressing nicely in there. We did have a little bit of a snafu with the weather we had the other day. They were bringing down all the lights for there, and the poor fella pulling slid off the road, rolled his pickup, rolled the trailer, thus breaking all the lights. So the lights for inside the pool are going to have to be reordered, and we're looking at 2 months out on that.
Okay,
so that's going to slow that bad boy down.
So it was a kind of a mini accident there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Luckily, he was okay. Nobody was hurt, so that's in the end. That's the best thing.
Yeah,
we'll still get lights in there. It's just going to be probably
a little later
in May. Yeah.
Okay.
So I talked about that a little bit. Of course, we got parent-teacher conferences coming up. That's March 2nd, I believe, without having my detailed notes in front of me.
That is March 2nd.
Yep. So we got that going on March 2nd. That night, Dakota Western Bank is putting on a meal again for the community. The teachers, that meal is going to be open. They'll probably start serving that at 5 or something. The teachers will go to supper at 5:30.
Yep, which means they won't be available from 5:30, and then there's a speaker at 6.
Yep.
So from 5:30 all the way till 7 o'clock, teachers won't be available, which you will see on the sign up when you actually go and sign up for your time. So
So just keep that in mind. The speaker is for the community as well. And again, this is another presentation being brought forward by the Hettinger Public School, West River Health Services, and Tara Jorgensen's staff up there, and then Southwest Area Social Services. So
Awesome.
Again, we thank everybody for the help on that.
Okay.
Otherwise, a lot of the report was, just some of the stuff coming up as far as we got some Olympic things that are coming down the pipe. We have a math meet that's coming down the pipe.
Yep.
And then just some things that we're kind of changing here in-house with the strategic plan. Just kind of an update on that to where we are. We've had our first meeting. The actual second meeting got canceled because Dr. Schatz was stuck over in the valley, of course, with the storm that they had.
Oh, yeah.
But just even some things that we're trying to reassess how we're using data. We're talking about, taking a look at our standards, aligning them with our curriculum. Really a lot of things at the same time. And I just let the board know last night we're gonna pull back on some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. We really need to focus on finishing our strategic plan first, because that's going to give us focus for everything else I just said.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish that one thing well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's finish that one thing well, because that's going to determine what data we're even going to be using, and then we can answer that question, and then that next question. So to be honest with you, we were trying to change too much too fast. So we just need to slow that down a little bit.
Okay.
And then just some things, just kind of redefining some roles with the janitorial staff. So I'm working with Mr. Benson on that, making sure that everybody's aware of what parts of the building they're responsible for, so on and so forth. And that was really kind of the end of my report.
Okay. So that was the superintendent secondary principal report. And then anything with elementary principal report, any notable moments?
Mr. Erickson went through. He talked about, of course, we had the spelling bee just a little bit ago. That included some elementary kids and some junior high kids. So he touched on that. He touched on the situation with the tables in the cafeteria. The new tables are in. We were lucky enough to get all the old tables sold. People will be in the process of picking those up. Before we put the new ones back into the lunchroom, we're going to have Mr. Benson and his crew are going to go in there and re-wax the floor, get it all nice and shined up before, that's typically what they do in the summer and then one other time in the year. So this will be about the second or third time they've done it. Mr. Erickson had that. He's working. So Mr. Erickson, one of the biggest things he touched on was the work that they're doing with the science curriculum on the elementary side. So Miss Block was there. Miss Block and Mrs. Schneider are kind of taking that on for us. Thank you to them. So Miss Block kind of gave a summary of where they were at so far with that science curriculum. Looking at the expenses of things, obviously most everybody who's going to be listening to this is either currently in school or has gone through school. And the idea of that traditional textbook, the companies, the McDougals and the Harcourts, they're not necessarily a fan of how long these last. They're losing money. Yep. When you can buy a textbook and that curriculum doesn't change, the standards don't change for 15 years, well, we get a lot of bang for our buck on how much we spent on that. So these companies have finally figured it out a little bit quicker than what West Point did with their all their kitchen appliances they made that never ran out of power, and now they're out of business. Yep. They're figuring out we can't make money this way, so they're trying to push everything digital. Yep. Or if you want paper, it's going to be a workbook, which means you got to buy one every year. So we're finding out that the expense of updating the curriculum is going to be a lot more than what any past previous school has had to deal with. But that's the way it is, man. And so we're just going to have to make that commitment and provide the best stuff we can. So.
Though, in addition to that, I actually, in the previous podcast about HEF with Joey Erickson, she was talking about that makerspace that they're putting together with all of that. Yep. And while, yes, that sounds like a little bit of a loss based of how that infrastructure and how that market has changed, it sure sounds like it's a lot less boring and a lot more interactive for the kids.
For what they have up there.
What they have and what they're going to be doing. So yeah, it sounds like it's a little bit more money, but it sure sounds like it's at least going to be worth it.
Well, and here's the thing with that makerspace stuff that they're building up there, and it's being enriched and it's being tweaked by our own staff. We're not hiring somebody to come in and tell us that. I'm kind of tired of hearing about, you guys kind of quality of teachers. It's like, you know what? I'll put my teaching staff up against anybody in the state of North Dakota. This staff, that science department has taken that stuff that was purchased 6 years ago, and I'm sorry, it was junk. I'll just be honest with you. I'm going to be pretty honest here. It was junk, and they got rid of the junk, and they're turning this into something that can actually be used. It's not used just because we have it, but we're going to use it because we can grow on it, and we can build those teaching experiences. And that's our staff doing that. We're not hiring some dude from Washington, D.C. to come in and tell us this, or somebody from Denver, Colorado. Yep. It's our staff doing this, and I'm proud of that, because you know what? Our staff knows what they're doing.
Yep, and they know their kids, they know what they need, and
you know,
absolutely.
And when we review the curriculum, it takes a while, because this staff asks the hard questions. They don't want to just, give me the newest, greatest thing.
Yeah, they don't want to check a box.
Yes, yeah. We want to vet it. Is it backed by? Is it science backed to be true, decent curriculum? Is it actually something that aligns itself with our state standards? Does it align itself with the standards of Hettinger Public School District? Yeah, I mean, it's got to be vetted and go through all of that before we even bring it forward as an option.
Yeah,
and it's a process, but it's a process because these people care. That's what it comes down to. So
that's great.
So that was a big part of Mr. Erickson's report last night in that.
Awesome. So then, if that's the elementary report, let's take a look at the athletic director report and any committee reports.
Yeah, so athletic director, of course, Mr. Kohler. Our winter sports seasons are winding down. Anyone listening to KNEC today, you guys, our wrestlers have been up in Fargo working their tails off today. We got the girls are starting the regional tournaments. The boys are a week or so out. So our winter sports are going to start winding down. We did hire a new head track and field coach, Alex Anderson, for the spring track and field season. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome.
That's going to start in March sometime there. We did hire a new head junior high football coach, Brad Guthrie. We're excited about that. So that'll be for next fall. In the course of spring, we have baseball coming down the pipe, and that season will be opening up. So just kind of going through those things and letting the board know this is where we're at currently with all of our sports and activities that are going on. We've got FFA going in directions. We got this group going in directions, Owls in directions. So just really kind of just keeping everybody in the loop as far as where all the kids are heading in different directions.
Just the general updates of where they're at in those either those departments or those groups or sports. So
you bet. Okay. The committee reports. We had the building committee on the pool. I already talked about that.
Yep. And
then there was a transportation committee meeting that took place over the last month. And the transportation committee, we're just looking at bus routes. We're happy with our bus drivers. We're happy with our providers. With Terry and Henry Miller do a great job for us, and their staff, they do a great job. The school employees, Andy Rail, they do a great job. But every year we're going to be in the habit of reviewing that. Are the kids getting on at a viable time in the morning, and are they getting home at a decent time?
Gotcha. And that's something you guys check every year.
Totally. So it's just, again, we were sitting down and saying, okay, is there anywhere where we can shave some minutes off of this without making it a dangerous ride? You know what I mean? Gotcha. I mean, we don't want it to turn into a roller coaster. So, but yet, this is a big county. I'm born and raised here. There's parts of this eastern county that I've been in maybe twice. This is a huge county, so some of these kids, they're on there for a long time, and so we're just trying to make sure that we're being accountable, double checking, making sure there's not anything we can do different to make it so those kids aren't on that bus as long as they are. So we're just working through that process.
Gotcha.
And then the curriculum committee met just this last week, and it was some new members on there because of some elections and stuff like that. So it was just more an opportunity for me to sit down, get them up to speed on where we can find different resources that influence the curriculum committee.
Okay.
So it was more like an educational meeting where I was bringing everybody up to speed and saying, okay, this is where we get the teaching license. This is where you can look there. This is where we can look at class descriptions. This is where we can look at MISO 3 numbers.
Okay.
And this some of that kind of stuff. Looked at a couple contracts we have with some outside providers, and that group will continue to meet moving into the spring as we reevaluate the 7 through 12 class schedule for next year. So.
Okay. Awesome. So that kind of clears it up for miscellaneous business. The next section, unfinished business, the Eng Tech update. Why don't we go into that?
You bet. Nothing really there, to be honest with you. So again, EngTech, that's the group that oversaw all the projects we've been doing off of that mill levy, windows, boilers, pool. So again, we already talked the pool. That's really the last projects we have there. So EngTech, there wasn't much to go off of that.
Okay. ESSER grants is what I have next on this sheet.
You bet. ESSER grants. So as we move into the spring, that's going to be a big one to watch because we got the ESSER money, or the COVID money, if you want to call it that. And we're kind of watching the legislation to see if they're going to change any of the cap times as far as finances. At the end of June, that's when our financial year is up. And the last couple of years since COVID, the state's been pretty relaxed on how much a school keeps in reserves. There's a whole equation and stuff like that. I don't want to go into that. We'd be here for an hour. There's a whole equation, and they've suspended that. So we're watching to see, because there's some legislation that's asking them to suspend that for a couple more years, which would be nice because then we don't have to get crazy and just be wasteful in our spending. And I think we've kind of touched on that before.
Yeah. Yep.
So again, we're watching the legislation to see what our options are going to be with the ESSER money. So.
Awesome. And then also in here, you have snow days for ancillary staff.
You bet. And that's kind of holdover from last one, too. So we probably talked about that last month. Okay. So the policy committee is going to be meeting on a couple different policies. We're going to be looking at a curriculum policy. We're going to be looking at kind of a pool policy as we move forward. And then we're going to be looking at the snow policy for ancillary. Just the other day, we had to have a 2-hour late start. That's an impact on our staff. So we're trying to look around and say, okay, what's the status quo for North Dakota? Are we following within that? And if we are we okay with that? Maybe we're not okay with that, right? What can we do to be fair? And when you're a contracted employee, hey, 2-hour late start gives you more time to have some coffee. Yep. If you're an hourly employee, 2-hour late start, that's 2 hours you're not getting paid.
Yep, exactly.
So we're going to try to make sure that we're just going to investigate that and make sure we come to a happy conclusion on that one. So
okay, yeah. And then the last one for unfinished business, policy GAAE, critical race theory, second readings. What's that about?
So that's a policy that is a required policy by the state of North Dakota. The last legislative session, the legislature came out with a century code. It went into a law that went into century code. And this policy was created by North Dakota School Board Associations and their lawyers. So it's a required policy that every school district has, which pretty much says we're not teaching critical race theory.
Okay.
So it was written by NDSBA. It's been vetted through their lawyers. So we just got to go through the reading process and make sure it gets added to our policy book here. So
okay, so that's what that is.
Yep.
New business. I'm guessing pre-K Little Learners Handbook?
Yeah. So,
cool.
It's that time of the year. We're getting ready for 23-24 academic year. So, Mr. Erickson brought forward the preschool handbooks. That's what those two are. And it was just for the board to review and then okay them. So we're good to go for the preschool next year and for 23-24. In the next month to 2 months, it might take a little bit longer because of negotiations. Mm-hmm. But you'll be hearing the elementary handbook will come forward for approval. The high school handbook will come forward for approval.
Gotcha. So we have those, and then also bleachers.
So it's kind of an interesting conversation. And actually, it was tabled. So we're going to continue to talk about this. No decision was made. So I don't know how to explain this a little bit, but so we have a family that has come forward and said, hey, we would love to donate some money to get a nice updated head table. 10 years ago or so, we had a big digital head table, or head table, excuse me, where you were able to put logos on there. You could put advertisements on it. And it was just a nice big one. You had more room, all that kind of stuff, right? That thing went to the wayside because of the managing company that we were working with was lying to business people in town.
Oh, okay.
So we got rid of that. So anyway, the family reached out to Mr. Kohler and said, hey, we'd love to do this. So we're going to move forward with the new head table.
Okay.
Because we have two options. Either we get one that sits on the floor, which we've never had before.
Okay.
or it has to be retrofitted to fit inside the bleachers. So that means you lift this 400-pound thing and you lift it and put it in the second row of the bleachers, and then you got to bolt it in there so it doesn't go, because it's top heavy, so it doesn't flip out and land
when
and
we
all this
close
kind
it
of
all
stuff.
up and everything.
No,
like
like when you're in the game, because it has to be taken. If you get the one that goes in the bleachers, it has to be taken up and down off of there every time.
Every night.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. And that's it. We did it before.
Oh, we did?
We did.
Okay.
We did it before. So it's not the end of the world.
Gotcha.
So in that whole process, though, it came up with, do we want to be doing that all the time, right? And it's cheaper to get one that's on the ground.
Okay.
But there's no room to do it on the ground. So we called Hussey, which is the ones who built the bleachers, and they said, hey, we can come out and we can cut out a portion for you. Oh. And I was like, hey, this is awesome. This will be easy to do until you get the price from them. Well, yeah, we can come out for the low down easy price of $18,000. And it's like, well, that's not quite what we were looking for there.
Yep, because that turned a small project into a much larger project.
Into a much larger project. And it's like, I'd like to spend that money somewhere else.
Gotcha.
So we've tabled it because, you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a possibility to get some advertisement on this new head table, because it's going to be digital. Absolutely. So maybe we pre-sell some of that, and that does help pay for it. And then you're not lifting this thing up and down, up and down, up and down, and it doesn't ever fall because of that and break everything.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where we're at now. I don't know.
You guys are still just working it out.
Yeah, exactly. Just
finding
kind of
a solution.
Yep, find a solution. We'll see what happens.
Very cool. All right, so last but not least, the last two items, we have the 2023-2024 calendar, and then the executive session with legal authority of NDCC negotiation strategy.
You bet. So the 23-24 calendar, we got that put together. A group of teachers put that together, went through about 4 different calendars, and then out of those 4, they took their 2 that they liked the most, and they had the teachers vote on it, right? Mm-hmm. And again, this is an educational calendar, right? So again, it's like, well, why don't I get to vote on it? And it's like, I understand that, but we're trying to meet the educational needs that the school has to attain to.
Yep.
So we can't work around everybody's vacations and things like that.
Yep.
And I get that, and that probably sounds more harsh than I'm sorry if you take it that way, but that's not the intent. But this is an educational calendar, so we're going to have the teachers vote on it. So out of that, the top vote getter, it was like 35-4 in favor of.
It was overwhelming.
Yep. So we brought that to the board. The board approved it last night. That'll be posted. We're doing this Thursday afternoon right now, so really it probably won't get posted until next week sometime.
Yep.
But it's a nice calendar. It's a shorter Christmas break, mostly because of where Christmas falls in the week. And we did find that this year, and granted, we had 4 days extra because of the snow. But we did find that was an extended period of time where we saw some regression in the kids a little bit. So
absolutely.
So we wanted to try to minimize that.
Absolutely.
And then the executive session. So here's the deal. So the NDCC, that's North Dakota Century Code. Okay. So that way you can check that out anytime you're bored at night. Okay. So we're heading into negotiations period. So from this time on until we're done with negotiations, that'll be on there in case we ever have to go into an executive session to talk about negotiations. We didn't last night, but it'll be on every one of these reports, because if it's on the agenda, because if it's not on the agenda, then you can't do it.
Gotcha. So you guys are just jumping through those hoops, making sure that can be done. And Gotcha. Leaving that open.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that pretty much wraps it up for this review of last night's school board meeting for February 15th. Next meeting is March 15th at 6 p.m. And thank you, Mr. Seamands, for coming in and talking with us.
Hey, thank you, Joel.
Thank you very, very much. And also, too, again, for Hawk Talk, you can not only listen to us here on YouTube, you can also listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcasts, whether it be Spotify podcasts, Apple podcasts, Google podcasts, any of those platforms. We are there. And have a great day.